This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. Good morning, I'm John Trout. It's Thursday, December 11th, 2025. Here's what's coming up on America in the Morning.
The U.S. seizes a Venezuelan oil tanker, and President Trump says we're going to keep the oil. I'm Rich Johnson.
A vote expected, but political experts unsure measures surrounding Obamacare subsidies will pass. I'm Clayton Neville.
A federal judge orders the Trump administration to stop deploying National Guard troops in Los Angeles. I'm Julie Walker.
A Michigan congressman moves to impeach RFK Jr.
RFK Jr. has got to go.
I'm Sue Aller.
The Federal Reserve delivers the expected interest rate cut, but the announcement also delivered an unusual amount of disagreement. I'm Peter Schacknow.
The Archdiocese of New Orleans will pay at least $230 million to hundreds of victims of sexual abuse by clergy. I'm Jennifer King.
All ahead on America in the Morning. In a move that marks a dramatic escalation between the U.S. and Venezuela, American troops on Wednesday captured an oil tanker that had departed a Venezuelan port, reportedly bound for Cuba. The seizure comes amid a large U.S. military buildup in the Caribbean region as part of an anti-drug trafficking mission against Venezuela and its leader, Nicolas Maduro. More on the story from correspondent Rich Johnson.
While he didn't offer any details, the president broke the news to reporters in the White House.
As you probably know, we've just seized a tanker on the coast of Venezuela, large tanker, very large.
At a later event, the president said the ship was taken for very good reasons, without specifying those reasons. Then he was asked,
"We're interested in the seizure of this tanker. What happens to the oil on that ship?" "Well, we keep it, I guess."
Attorney General Pam Bondi posted a short video on social media showing U.S. forces rappelling from helicopters onto the tanker. And as for the next steps,
other things are happening, so you'll be seeing that later, and you'll be talking about that later with some other people.
While not specifically endorsing the tanker seizure, Republican Senator Roger Marshall of Kansas said he's good with doing whatever it takes to rein in Venezuela.
Look, Venezuela is not a good ally for Americans. It's ran by a drug cartel. So I think we should be pushing back on Venezuela.
But Congressman Jake Auchincloss wants to know more about the motivation for this move.
I don't know if that tanker was seized as part of Iranian oil smuggling interdiction, which is legitimate, or whether it was seized as part of a blood for oil campaign in Venezuela, which is illegal.
The Massachusetts Democrat also told CNN he's concerned about what's next, especially the president's past suggestions that U.S. troops should hit the ground in Venezuela and perhaps Colombia to destroy drug cartel infrastructure.
Military adventurism in the jungles of Central and South America is not going to be popular with Americans.
I'm Richard Johnson.
The Senate is set to vote today on legislation surrounding the future of the Affordable Care Act's enhanced premium tax credits. Correspondent Clayton Neville reports there's still a divide between Democrats and Republicans, and also between some in the GOP as to how to proceed on a topic that could potentially send health care premiums for millions skyrocketing.
Dueling bills in Congress lead some political experts to believe the measures that involve expiring Obamacare subsidies will fail to pass. If that happens, lawmakers could see negotiations surrounding health care premiums over the holidays. The scheduled break, though, is approaching, and Democrats say affordable health care should be a top priority.
If Donald Trump and Republicans in Congress spent more time with the people that they are supposed to be representing instead of the billionaires that they have worked all year long to repurpose our government to be able to afford their tax cuts, the billionaires that they continue to cater to, they would know that affordability is not a con job. This is a real crisis.
Enhanced Obamacare subsidies expire December 31st, and millions of people could see a spike in insurance prices as a result. House Speaker Mike Johnson insisting the subsidies need an overhaul.
It would be a dereliction of duty to just extend subsidies without massive reforms to them. Okay, over the last 2 years, this is investigators at the Government Accountability Office. Okay, they submitted 24 fraudulent applications for the ACA subsidies, the Unaffordable Care Act subsidies, Obamacare, okay? Of the 24 fraudulent applications that they created intentionally to just see what would happen, 23 of them were approved. These applications were completely fraudulent. The investigators did not submit any Social Security numbers.
Republicans propose converting the expiring subsidies to health savings accounts, which GOP leaders say will lower premiums. But Senator Rand Paul told Fox News he has his own proposal to make it legal for companies like Amazon and Costco to bargain for their members as a single entity.
44 million people are members of Costco. One person negotiates for them, and they get one enormous group plan. They become the largest group plan in America. They will have more leverage to bring down prices than the biggest businesses in America.
Meanwhile, Senate Republican leadership insists that proposed health savings accounts drive down premiums by double-digit levels. I'm Clayton Neville.
RFK Jr. under fire with impeachment articles. When America in the Morning continues after these messages. We're back. This is America in the Morning. At the national map, here's AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton with a check of the national outlook.
Today finally brings some relief after an exceptionally wet start to the week for portions of both Washington and Oregon, but it's not looking completely dry. There can still be some heavy rain to start the day in the western foothills of the Washington Cascades, and no shortage of intermittent rain through the Washington coast, even a bit of rain into far northwestern Oregon once again. This comes after rather widespread rainfall of 2 to 4 inches or more since Monday in the area. The rain at least lessens in coverage through the afternoon, but tomorrow really should give many of these places a chance to dry out, especially Oregon, where there should even be some sun. Switching gears from rain to snow, there will be plenty of it coming up today and into tonight as a couple of storms take shape. The first one starts today over parts of northern Montana, with rain changing to snow as a cold front drops through the region. This is an area where the front will set up and hang around into the early part of the weekend as storm after storm rides along the same general path, and by Saturday morning, much of Montana away from the Idaho border should have 3 to 6 inches of snow accumulation, with a large swath of 6 to 12 inches in the east central part of the state and localized higher amounts. Another fast-moving zone of accumulating snow races from the Dakotas towards central Illinois by the end of the day today, with a narrow band of at least 1 to 3 inches of accumulation through tomorrow from the eastern Dakotas through far northeastern Tennessee. Lake effect snow brings 1 to 3 inches off the Great Lakes, with some zones of up to 3 to 6 inches as snow showers extend into mainly the high ground of the interior northeast, perhaps reaching coastal areas late. Otherwise, much of the southern half of the nation should be dry. In Burlington, Vermont, today brings clouds, colder conditions, and snow showers, the high 27. For Phoenix, expect sun and warmth with a high of 79, near 2010's daily record of 81. That's the nation's weather. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
Follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Simply search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. A judge has ordered President Trump to end the California National Guard troop deployment in Los Angeles. Details from correspondent Julie Walker.
A federal judge orders the Trump administration to stop deploying National Guard troops in Los Angeles, granting a preliminary injunction sought by California, with the state calling it a victory. But the judge put the decision on hold until Monday, seemingly to give the government time to appeal the ruling. In June, the president deployed thousands of troops to L.A. over Governor Gavin Newsom's objections following violent protests. California officials argue conditions have changed and troops are not needed. The Trump administration says the Guard is needed to protect federal personnel and property, and that they look forward to ultimate victory on the issue. I'm Julie Walker.
A Michigan congresswoman has announced articles of impeachment in the House against the head of the Department of Health and Human Services, saying RFK Jr. is undermining public health. Sue Aller reports.
A Michigan congresswoman says enough is enough.
RFK Jr. has got to go. Today I introduced articles of impeachment to remove him from office.
Democrat Hallie Stevens is accusing the Health and Human Service Secretary of abuse of authority.
RFK Jr. has turned his back on science, on public health, and on the American people.
Stevens is criticizing Kennedy for cutting critical medical research, undermining public health institutions, and restricting vaccine access.
I cannot and I will not stand by while one man dismantles decades of medical progress.
On X, she says cancer trials in her district were halted mid-treatment because of funding cuts. Kennedy's office dismissed the impeachment move as partisan theatrics. The impeachment resolution now goes to a Republican-controlled House, which has shown no interest in taking it up. I'm Sue Aller.
When we return on America in the Morning, the Fed cuts interest rates. Investors react on Wall Street. After these messages. This is America in the Morning. The Business Report is sponsored by Gusto. Gusto's a simple online payroll and benefits tool built for small businesses. Learn more at gusto.com/radio. Here's CNBC's Peter Schack.
Investors cheered as the Fed gave the markets what they wanted and expected, a quarter-point interest rate cut. But Fed harmony was very much not in evidence. 3 members of the policy committee dissented. That's the first time that's happened since 2019, and only the 5th time since 1993. And the dissents covered both sides of the interest rate argument. Stephen Mirin, a recent Fed appointee by President Trump, favored a half-point rate cut. 2 others voted for no cut at all. Chairman Jerome Powell says that's the difficulty in trying to address both sides of the Fed's dual mandate.
In the near term, risks to inflation are tilted to the upside and risks to employment to the downside, a challenging situation. There is no risk-free path for policy as we navigate this tension between our employment and inflation goals.
But RBC Capital Markets chief economist Francis Donald thinks the Fed may have gotten it wrong by being overly pessimistic about the labor market.
We've only seen what I would consider a normalization in the labor market. In particular, this hasn't been broad-based across all age groups. It's been really focused on young individuals. So is this really a labor market that's quickly deteriorating? It doesn't look much like that to me. Meanwhile, inflation has been above target for 55 months. So if I was looking at the bulk of the data and I looked at that dot plot and I looked at the Fed's forecast today, I would be saying, oh, they must have decided to hold or hike.
Nonetheless, stocks did rally on the news. One of Wednesday's big individual stock gainers was Warner Brothers Discovery, up about 5% on growing speculation about a bidding war. Alex Fitch is portfolio manager at Oakmark, which is a major shareholder in Warner Brothers.
Warner Discovery is one of the last crown jewel assets out there. It can make a difference to either bidder in their go-forward trajectory. And so you're in this situation where either party can afford to not just pay for the standalone value of Warner Brothers, but also the value of what it could help make you become as part of your company and the value of keeping it out of somebody else's hands. So I actually suspect we're not done yet.
Warner Brothers has a deal in place to be bought by Netflix, while Paramount has launched a hostile bid for the company. Google's YouTube TV is planning to roll out genre-based subscription plans. At the forefront is a sports plan, which would include channels like ESPN and FS1, as well as the ability to add premium offerings like NFL Sunday Ticket. Reddit has started testing verified profiles. The new feature is aimed at increasing transparency for users of the social media platform. Among stocks we'll be watching in the day ahead, software giants Oracle and Adobe, both of which beat Wall Street estimates with their latest quarterly earnings. The government is out with its weekly look at first-time claims for jobless benefits, and we'll get the latest quarterly earnings from clothing maker Lululemon and warehouse retailer Costco, both of those coming after this afternoon's closing bell.
CNBC's Peter Schack. When we return on America in the Morning, countries revolt over gay pride soccer game. After these messages. After years of negotiations, New Orleans Catholic Church administration and clerical sex abuse victims have come to an agreement, correspondent Jennifer King reports.
The Archdiocese of New Orleans will pay at least $230 million to hundreds of victims of sexual abuse by clergy, in a settlement now approved by a federal bankruptcy judge. The agreement was confirmed to the Associated Press by both the Archdiocese and attorneys for victims who've been involved in negotiations since 2020. Earlier this month, some survivors behind the more than 500 abuse claims testified how they are still affected decades later. The finalized agreement includes policies intended to prevent abuse and increase church transparency. They are adopting a survivor's Bill of Rights, and a survivor will have a seat on the Archdiocese Internal Review Board that handles abuse claims. An outside expert will monitor church prevention practices, and a public archive will share documents related to abuse claims that have long been withheld. I'm Jennifer King.
Two Middle East nations who were elated to be part of the 2026 World Cup are irate at the prospects of playing in one particular game in Seattle. Correspondent Charles de Ledesma reports both Egypt and Iran are critical of plans to make the matchup a gay pride celebratory soccer game.
Egypt and Iran, two Middle East nations that target gays and lesbians, have complained to FIFA over the scheduling of a World Cup soccer match in Seattle that's expected to celebrate LGBTQ+ pride. Leaders in the nation's soccer federations publicly rebuked the idea of playing the match on June 26 at Seattle Stadium. Local organisers say it will include a once-in-a-lifetime moment to showcase and celebrate communities in Washington. Iran says it plans a formal complaint at an upcoming FIFA meeting in Qatar. For its part, Seattle's organising committee responds it's moving forward as planned with the community programming outside the stadium during Pride weekend and throughout the tournament. I'm Charles de Ledesma.
America in the Morning for Thursday, December 11th, 2025 is produced by Jeff McKay. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One. This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. I'm John Trout. Coming up this half hour.
Tensions are mounting between the United States and Venezuela.
We've just seized a tanker.
Jennifer King, Washington.
The Federal Reserve reduced its key interest rate for the third time in a row.
We hear loud and clear.
Haya Panjwani, Washington.
Murder on a Kentucky campus. We'll tell you the suspect's family ties. I'm Joan Jones.
A redistricting vote set for today in Indiana. I'm Clayton Neville.
The House passes a defense spending bill, flooding concerns in the Pacific Northwest, and troubling allegations against a college football coach.
Who is headlining the New Year's Eve celebration in Times Square this year? I'm Kevin Carr.
Back after these messages. America in the Morning continues. Where's that rain-snow line today across the nation? Here's AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
A piece of energy from the storm that soaked parts of the Northwest with yet another day of rain on Wednesday will dive southeastward into northern parts of the interior West today, resulting in some snow developing over north-central Montana. Just to the west, rain changes to snow in places like Great Falls, with southern parts of the state such as Billings facing a change from rain to snow in the afternoon, and even more so at night. This fast-moving bit of energy makes it far enough to the south and east to create snow today over southwestern Minnesota, even to western Illinois. Through tomorrow, 1 to 3 inches of snow can be expected from southeastern South Dakota to western Virginia, with up to 3 to 6 inches in a zone from southern Minnesota to the Cincinnati area. However, that's not the end of the snow in the interior west, as reinforcing waves of energy in the atmosphere will continue to interact with the front that sets up and doesn't move much into the start of the weekend. This means snow much of the time over much of Montana into not only tomorrow, but even early Saturday morning, by which time AccuWeather winter weather experts say that much of the state should have 3 to 6 inches of snow, with the highest totals of up to 1 to 2 feet, likely confined to the highest peaks of north-central Montana and near the western Montana-Wyoming border zone. This is all separate from the lake effect snow that is now underway across the Great Lakes, and total snow through this evening should be at least 1 to 3 inches downwind of all the lakes, with any totals closer to 6 to 12 inches expected in a small corner of northwestern lower Michigan. Snow showers continue over mainly interior parts of the Northeast as well, but a spotty afternoon snow shower may even approach the coast today from New York through Maine. Rain winds down in the Pacific Northwest today, but the entire southern tier looks mainly dry, with the southwest turning warmer. That's the weather across America. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
Follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. The situation between the United States and Venezuela has dramatically escalated after the U.S. military seized a Panamanian-flagged oil tanker that had departed Venezuela, reportedly bound for Cuba. The Department of War released unclassified video of soldiers rappelling down from helicopters to capture the tanker. The vessel's seizure comes as the U.S. is rapidly growing its military presence in the Caribbean and placing even more pressure on Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro. Correspondent Jennifer King has more on the story.
Tensions are mounting between the United States and Venezuela.
As you probably know, we've just seized a tanker on the coast of Venezuela, large tanker, very large. Largest one ever seized, actually.
President Trump spoke at a White House meeting during a roundtable with business leaders. The seizure was led by members of the U.S. Coast Guard, transported to the tanker by helicopter from the USS Gerald R. Ford, a Navy aircraft carrier. Video posted online by Attorney General Pam Bondi shows people fast roping from one of the helicopters to the deck and moving through the tanker's superstructure with weapons drawn. Bondi says that the ship was sanctioned by the U.S. over its involvement in an illicit oil shipping network supporting foreign terrorist organizations. The unusual move comes a day after a pair of U.S. fighter jets flew over the Gulf of Venezuela and marks an escalation in the administration's campaign of pressure against Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro.
Interested in the seizure of this tanker. What happens to the oil on this ship? Well, we keep it, I guess.
Where does it go? What port does it go to?
Well, you have to follow the tanker. You know, you're a good newsman. Just follow the tanker.
Do you know where it's going?
Follow it. Get a helicopter and follow the tanker.
Is it true it's going to
But
Cuba?
we're going to, I assume we're going to keep the oil.
Addressing supporters at a rally in Caracas, Maduro did not address the seizure directly, but said his country is prepared to break the teeth of the North American empire if necessary. Jennifer King, Washington.
The Federal Reserve cut interest rates by 25 basis points at the conclusion of its two-day meeting on Wednesday, marking the central bank's third cut of the year. Correspondent Haya Panjwani reports that the Fed board was divided as to whether to issue a larger cut, the quarter-point cut, or none at all due to concerns about the direction of the economy.
The Federal Reserve reduced its key interest rate for the third time in a row, but signaled that it may leave rates unchanged in the coming months.
What you see is some people feel we should stop here and that we're at the right place and just wait. Some people feel like we should cut once or more this year and next year.
The cut reduced the rate to about 3.6%. That's the lowest it's been in nearly 3 years. Not budging on interest rates could attract ire from President Donald Trump. He's demanded steep reductions to borrowing costs.
The head of the Federal Reserve is a stiff, and you fight that. It's amazing. We fight that, and yet interest rates are going down, except with him, not too much. He did a rather small number that could have been doubled, at least doubled.
The Fed met against the backdrop of elevated inflation that's frustrated many Americans. Consumer prices have jumped 25% in the 5 years since COVID, with higher prices for groceries, rents, and utilities.
And excluding the volatile food and energy categories, core PCE prices also rose 2.8%. These readings are higher than earlier in the year as inflation for goods has picked up, reflecting the effects of tariffs.
Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell.
We hear loud and clear how people are experiencing really costs. It's really high costs. And a lot of that is not the current rate of inflation. A lot of that is just embedded higher cost due to higher inflation in 2022 and 23. So that's what's going on. And so the best thing we can do is restore inflation to its 2% goal, and our policy is intended to do that.
Lower rates from the Federal Reserve can bring down borrowing costs for mortgages, auto loans, and credit cards over time. Haya Panjwani, Washington.
A shocking announcement comes with the arrest made in Tuesday's on-campus shooting at Kentucky State University that ended with the death of one student and critical injuries for another. Joan Jones reports the shooter was a parent of one of the students.
Scott Tracy is Assistant Chief of Police in Frankfort, Kentucky, where KSU is located. He says the suspect's name is Jacob Bard.
Mr. Bard is a resident of Evansville, Indiana. Our investigation has determined that Mr. Bard is a parent of a Kentucky State University student.
Bard was quickly arrested. He's in jail facing murder charges. The shooting took place at an on-campus residence hall. Killed was a student from Indianapolis.
He was DeJohn Fox, a 19-year-old male and a student at Kentucky State University. Our deepest condolences go out to Mr. Fox's family.
The injured student remains in critical condition. No motive so far, but CNN is reporting there may be videos that show a fight involving Bard's sons before the shooting. And reporters have questioned if Bard came to campus to talk to administrators about his son's safety. So far, investigators are not confirming any of those reports. This was the second shooting in 4 months near the student residence, and students like this one are rattled.
After this situation, I feel like this should be the last time this happens. So I think we need to, have better security on campus. Because, this isn't the first time something like this has happened. But the fact that somebody's life was taken out, we need to do better.
She spoke to WKYT-TV. Across the country, gun violence has broken out numerous times at HBCUs. Shots rang out at homecoming events at Maryland's Howard University, Lincoln University in Pennsylvania, and at South Carolina State University. At least a dozen people injured and 2 died. Since then, HBCUs have been working to strengthen their security measures. But the tragedy at KSU this week has renewed questions about whether current measures are sufficient. I'm Joan Jones.
When we return on America in the Morning, coach fired for alleged inappropriate conduct after these messages. In what's been a dicey debate at times, leaving members of the GOP at odds with one another, Indiana lawmakers are expected to vote today on proposed redistricting maps that favor Republicans ahead of next year's midterm elections. Correspondent Clayton Neville reports.
It's an issue being taken up today in Indiana that's been front and center in other states recently, like Texas and California. The Lone Star State recently won a legal battle over its proposed congressional maps that could give Texas 5 additional Republican seats ahead of the midterms. California moving forward on new maps that favor Democrats in retaliation. The Indiana State House already approved the proposed maps there. Indiana Attorney General Todd Rokita stands behind those maps.
If anyone's silly enough to sue on these maps in Indiana, assuming they passed new maps that put us on par with what the Democrats have been doing for years, we're going to win in court, to your point. Anyone silly enough to sue, we're going to beat.
He spoke with OAN and said there's nothing illegal about gerrymandering.
There's no evidence in the record. There's no evidence so far in Indiana that we're doing any of that.
No.
In fact, the author of the map-making bill said, hey, we're doing this for political advantage. And although that might sound a little odd to maybe some of your viewers, it's not. It's what's done. It's why the whole redistricting process is called a political exercise.
Republican Governor Mike Braun has urged lawmakers to pass the maps. The vote slated for this afternoon. I'm Clayton Neville.
Washington State has declared an emergency in response to days of severe rain in the Pacific Northwest. Flood warnings have been extended through Friday, with what's being described as catastrophic flooding in the western part of Washington, where 17 different rivers are either near or exceeding flood stage and reaching historic levels. As many as 100,000 people are within an area facing evacuation. A number of areas have received 8 inches of rain in the past 48 hours, with more expected today. The National Weather Service is reporting that Washington State and Oregon have been hit with what's described as an atmospheric river of rain, which has dumped an estimated 5 trillion gallons of water in the Pacific Northwest in the past 7 days. Football coach at a marquee college program in the Big Ten has been fired for alleged inappropriate conduct. Correspondent Gethin Coolbaugh reports.
Michigan fired football coach Sharon Moore on Wednesday, saying a university investigation had found evidence of a, quote, inappropriate relationship with a staff member. The stunning announcement said Moore's alleged conduct was a clear violation of university policy. Moore, the team's former offensive coordinator, was promoted to the top job in January 2024 to replace Jim Harbaugh. The 9-3 Wolverines are set to play Texas in the Citrus Bowl in a few weeks. Under Moore, Michigan posted an 18-8 record over parts of 3 seasons. I'm Gethin Coolbaugh.
The U.S. House votes to pass a sweeping defense policy bill Wednesday that authorizes $900 billion in military programs, including a pay raise for troops and an overhaul of how the Department of Defense buys weapons. The bill passed by a vote of 312 to 112 and comes amid friction between how some in Congress view President Trump's management of the military. Tucked away inside the massive 3,000-page bill is a demand that the Department of War must give Congress more information on boat strikes in the Caribbean and support for allies in Europe, such as Ukraine. The bill also calls for a 3.8% pay raise for military members, as well as housing and facility improvements on military bases. Google has updated the latest release of their Android operating system for phones to include a new emergency video feature when one would dial 911. Chuck Palm has that in today's Tech Report.
Google is rolling out a new safety feature with the Android update dubbed Emergency Live Video. Starting today, when you dial 911 or you hit the panic button, your phone will automatically capture and share real-time video and audio with the first responders. No more fumbling to describe the chaos. Let the visuals do the talking. Using Google's Advanced Protection Program, the on-device processing for privacy without consent integrates with the carrier network for seamless dispatch. This means Google promises not to invade your privacy by sharing anything other than the pertinent details. This went to beta test last year and is hitting the Pixel devices first on Android 15, with Samsung and others queuing up by first quarter next year. Google's CEO said in a statement, "In emergencies, every second counts, and live visuals can bridge the gap between the call and the rescue." Currently only available in the US, but will be rolling out to Canada and Europe first of the year. Follow for more tech news at thenewoldtechguy.com. I'm Chuck Palm.
Robert Workman has Thursday Sports on America in the Morning.
At the baseball winter meetings in Orlando, another big bat comes off the free agent board as the Orioles and Pete Alonso agreed on a 5-year deal worth $155 million. The slugger, who turned 31 on Sunday, hit 38 homers and drove in 126 for the Mets last season. Joe Buck wins the Ford C. Frick Award for Broadcast Excellence from the Hall of Fame. He will be honored in Cooperstown next summer, as his father Jack was in 1987. NBA Cup quarterfinals, the Thunder throttled the Suns 138-89 to improve to 24-1 on the season. That ties the best 25-game start in NBA history set by the Warriors 10 years ago, the season they went on to win a record 73 games. Coach Mark Daigneault.
Both ends of the floor, great precision on offense, and then really made them earn everything on defense, and it built us a nice lead.
Shai Gilgeous-Alexander had 28 points. OKC has won 16 in a row. In the other quarter, the Spurs spanked the Lakers 132-119, 30 points for Stephon Castle. The semifinals Saturday in Las Vegas then will have the Knicks and the Magic in the East, and the Thunder versus the Spurs in the West. College football, Michigan fired Coach Sharon Moore after an investigation found credible evidence that Moore had an inappropriate relationship with a staff member. Local police then detained Moore outside Ann Arbor after the announcement for a possible assault. Biff Poggi will be the interim coach as the 18th-ranked Wolverines face number 13 Texas in the Citrus Bowl on New Year's Eve. The bowl season, by the way, starts this Saturday with the LA Bowl between Boise State and Washington, just hours after the Army-Navy game ends the regular season and just as the Heisman Trophy will be presented in New York City. That's Thursday Sports.
When we return on America in the Morning, Real Housewives star to be released from prison after these messages. She's getting out of prison 4 years earlier than scheduled, but for a former Real Housewives star who's moving from prison to a residential program, she still has restitution to make. Correspondent Julie Walker reports.
Jennifer Shaw, a former star on The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, is out of prison and in a community confinement program after serving less than half of her sentence for defrauding thousands of people. A Bureau of Prisons spokesperson confirming that she was transferred Wednesday morning from the federal prison camp in Bryan, Texas, to a program overseen by the Phoenix Residential Reentry Management Office. The transfer means that Shaw is either being held in home confinement or in a halfway house. They would not elaborate for security reasons. The 52-year-old was sentenced to 6.5 years in prison for defrauding people in a telemarketing scam that stretched nearly a decade. Shaw pleaded guilty to a conspiracy charge, apologized, and pledged to pay $6.5 million in restitution once released. That date is set for August 30th, 2026. I'm Julie Walker.
It may be 20 days away, but the networks are announcing which stars will be ringing in 2026 on New Year's Eve. Entertainment reporter Kevin Carr has details.
Even though it's still 2 weeks until Christmas, let's look ahead to New Year's Eve.
2, 1, Happy New Year!
On Wednesday, ABC announced the headliner for Dick Clark's New Year's Rockin' Eve. The supreme diva herself, Diana Ross, will be the star of the show in Times Square, performing a medley of her songs from over the years. In a statement, Ross said, quote, "Let's embrace a new beginning, new opportunities, new joy." And she called the night a celebration of love. 39 other artists will perform in multiple cities. Some of the stars include Chappell Roan, Mariah Carey, Demi Lovato, Pitbull, Rick Springfield, the New Kids on the Block, the voices from K-pop Demon Hunters, and Post Malone. Ryan Seacrest will be joined by Rita Ora to host the event in Times Square, while Chance the Rapper will host in Chicago, and Rob Gronkowski and Julianne Hough will join in from Las Vegas. The host and performers from the Puerto Rico broadcast will be announced later.
It's time to party like it's 2026.
Dick Clark's New Year's Rockin' Eve will air on ABC at 8 p.m. on December 31st. It will repeat on Hulu on New Year's Day.
2025, out.
I'm Kevin Carr.
That's our show for today, Thursday, December 11th, 2025. America in the Morning is produced by Jeff McKay. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One.